So, yeah, what Simon just said is absolutely right. It's a lot about getting inspired and so on. And when you want to learn and create great artwork, why don't you learn by creating great artwork? And that doesn't necessarily mean that you already know what you are doing. So, actually, the title of the presentation is Learning by Recreating Great Artwork Found on the Internet. So, the internet is a great source of getting inspired, and inspiration is the thing that we know. Like when you just type in 3D graphics at Pinterest, you get this huge list of stuff, and it's there is no way of not getting inspired, right? And this is just one platform. You could go to Insta, to Twitter, to Facebook, whatever you're using. And so yeah, I found this one here on Twitter, and I liked it a lot, by Tool of the Day. So follow Tool of the Day, great artwork. Um, and I was especially interested in creating this. And whenever you find something on the internet you want to recreate, this may be because of very different reasons. One is, how can I create this fence shape? Another one might be, how can I create exactly that look? How can I come up with that style? How can I come up with my own style? All of these things are stuff that you can learn simply by getting inspired on the internet. So, yeah, actually, what I want to do today is show you how I would recreate that, because this one especially inspired me a lot because it has various aspects in it. One is a technical aspect, and I love recreating technical stuff, and the other one is making it beautiful. And that's what Tool of the Day did here. And that's also why I want to recreate it. So let's see how far we can get. I'm not sure if I'm going to finish that in my time, but I'm going to try. Right, so let me stay here for a little bit. What do we have here? We have this fence shape, right, that is being created. We have this tool that is creating the lines or the wires. We have this roller in the background that is pulling up these parts that are pulling the fence, and they are just being pushed out here. And it's all a loop. So in the end, it's also the plan to have it loopable. Right, so let me get started with this. We're going to start by creating the fence setup. Then we're going to create the roller. Then we're going to create the thing down here. And if we then make it, I try to recreate, or to make it look beautiful, at least as much as I can in the rest of the time. So let me jump into Cinema 4D and let's recreate this thing. Right, I'm going to start by creating a little rig, because what you need is this this movement of the wire that is doing circles here, then going here, doing circles there, coming back, doing this here, and this needs to be like extruded in height, right? That's what we need to do. So I'm going to create 3 nulls. I'm going to call one emitter, although it's not technically going to be an emitter, but in this case it might make sense in a second. The second one is my rotate, and the third one is my move. So the emitter needs to be moved from the center. So I'm going to put it at Z, let's say 4 centimeters, and here in the object tab I'm going to set the display to sphere and just make it 2 so I know where this thing is. Then I'm going to put that into the rotate, and the rotate into the move. That's my rig, right? So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to make the scene a little bit longer, and I'm starting to create keyframes. So the first thing we want to do is set the keyframes for the rotate. And when I use the heading here, I can rotate or make this emitter create circles, right? So I set this to 0, create a keyframe, add frame 0, and then I go to frame 40, and I set it to something that is creating circles, but then is ending up on the other side. So for example, 180 times 5 equals 900. So here we go. Now we are at the other side, but we did like 2.5 rotations. I'm going to set another keyframe. And then I need another one for the time where the whole thing is being moved. And I'm going to do that as well. Then let's go to frame 100 and set another keyframe at 1800, which is twice the rotation value here, and another one with the same value here. So what we get is this, and then going back to the other side, right? Simple as that. Then I'm going to go to frame 40, because between frame 40 and 60, that's the part where this thing doesn't move. So I go to my move, and now I'm going to animate the position X. So first of all, I'm going to set a keyframe here at frame 0 as well, because I'm going to loop this. So from 0 to frame 40, I am at an X value, position X value of 0. Then I go to 50. Here we go. Set a keyframe and leave it at 50 until frame 100. Set another keyframe, and until 120, I'm going to bring it back to 0. And this is giving me this movement here. So we are already quite close. Let me bring up the timeline, and let me also bring up the keyframes. So what we need here is linear keyframes. So I select all of them, and instead of using like keyframes with spline interpolation, I'm going to use linear interpolation, and this way I have like almost constant speed. It's not exactly constant speed, but close to constant speed. And the thing that we need to do from now is, if we want to make it loopable, we just extend the timeline, and then there is a parameter when you select the track that is called after. So what am I going to do after this? And you can just set this to offset repeat. I like offset repeat over repeat because it adds the offset and then repeats. So in some cases, like for example, this rotation here, this makes sense because it's going to 900 degrees, then to 1800 degrees, and then it's adding another 900, and so on, however, well, until infinity. Right, so we're going to set the other one to offset repeat as well, and now we already have an infinite loop of this object doing this exact movement. And the next thing I want to do is I want to create a spline from that, and the easiest way to do that is by selecting the object, the emitter, and create a tracer. So I'm tracing this object here, and now you can see that I'm creating a spline like that. So how can I now extrude this like in height? It's actually very simple, and it's a thing that many people don't know. You can animate the tracer. So you can just animate the tracer's position at frame 0. We go, wait, here we go. So we can animate the position Y. Let's say at frame 0, it is 0 centimeters, and at frame 120, it is something like 160 is a good value, I think. And we're going to make this linear as well. And suddenly, we get this. Right? And this is already one of the elements that we need. It's stopping here because I have to set what happens after my keyframes to offset repeat. So here we go. Now it's moving on until infinity. That's the thing. All right. But there's not just this part. There's also the part that is being connected to the things that are rotating on the ground where this wire is coming out. So we need that connection as well. So let me go to frame 0 again, and I'm going to go to front view, zoom in, and because I want the point of this thing coming out of the ground to be at Y0, I have to move up my spline. So I'm going to do that by 50 centimeters. Now it's up here. And now I'm going to create the other spline that is connecting this spline with the output. Right, so I'm going to use snapping for that. So I'm going to enable it, and I'm also going to use grid and work plane snap, but just grid point snap. And then I'm going to use the spline tool and create a spline that is like maybe like that, and then it's going back to this place and here. Right, let me select this top thing and deactivate snapping for a bit. We need to adjust the tangents. Well, let me just do this by rotating this. What's wrong here? Here we go. Still not working? Here we go. All right, and I'm also going to move this one down a little bit. Like so. And now we can have a look from the side. Like so. And now we need to snap this point to the axis of the null. We're going to do that by enabling snapping, and in this case also enable axis snap. Snap it to the null here, and then we're going to select these two and just snap them to 25 centimeters here. So this is our other spline. Now when we make the spline a child of the rotate null, we already should be in pretty good shape here. So we have this and that. I mean, we could adjust the angle a little bit, but the basic thing is to get them as close as possible. I want to save a little bit of time here. So the next thing I can do is I can actually sweep that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this spline and the tracer. Then I'm going to hold down the Alt key while creating a sweep. And then both sweeps are selected and created as a parent. And because they are selected, I can hold down the Shift key and create an end side. And this will already sweep it. It's a little bit too big. The radius is way too high, so I'm going to bring this down to something like 4. And I'm also going to adjust the sides to, let's say, 12. And now let me also add some caps here with a rounding. And I forgot to select the other one. So here we've got 2 of these. It's always good to start from 0 here. But now we've got this one. So my plan is to just create one of these elements and then clone it to the other side and then clone it in a row, and this will create the fence pattern. So let me go to frame 0 here. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a cylinder. Make the radius something like 40, the height something like 20. I just need one height segment and maybe 50 rotation segments, like so. And I also just need a slice of it. So I'm going to slice it, and I need exactly this part of it, because the counterpart will be on the other side, and there needs another spline to, another spline needs to come out of this. Now let's adjust the topology of this guy a bit. And I want to do that by going to polygon mode. And one thing I really like is the Phong break selection. Because with Phong break selection, you can select whole faces. Like whenever something is like a planar surface, it's totally easy to select the whole surface using the Phong break selection, because it's based on an angle. Right? And then I can hit the shortcut U and Z, which is the melt tool. And I'm going to do the same thing for this part here and for this part here, so I've got cleaner topology. All right? And then the next thing I want to do is, well, let me actually think about what I'm going to do next. I'm going to create a bevel deformer. So let me go in here and hold down the Shift key. This way the bevel deformer will automatically be created as a child. And I'm also going to bring up the subdivisions here. So here we go. That's this part, and it's still procedural, so we can adjust the offset a little bit as we want. Also later. Then we need this part where the wire is coming out from, but before I do that, I have to bring down the cylinder by 10 centimeters or so. That's good. Yeah, 10 centimeters is correct, because the height here is 20. And the next thing is, as I said, creating this part where the wire is coming out. And I will do that by creating a tube. I'm gonna make it smaller, way smaller. So the inner radius is supposed to be 4, the outer radius, let's say 6 or 7. And I'm also going to make it just 6 centimeters high or so. Yeah, I think that looks good. We need a few more segments. And then I'm going to move it to the side by 25 centimeters. And I just noticed that my snapping is still on. I'm going to turn it off. Okay, next thing is to create the fillets. And I'm just going to use like a little bit of a fillet, like 0.7 or so. That sounds about, or looks about right. And I'm going to place it like that. And now I want to taper it so that it's a little bit wider down here. And the way I can do that is by creating a taper deformer. And I always hold down the shift key when I create the deformers because I usually have the objects to deform selected anyways. And this way it will be created as a child and directly assigned as a deformer, therefore. So here we go. It's the wrong way around, so I have to rotate it by 180 degrees. And now I can bring down the curvature and up or down, lower the strength, and this will create this shape here. Okay. That looks good. Let me put this into a null, and then I'm going to rename this. As Matt and Ellie already mentioned, it's always important to give meaningful names. This here is a thingy, and I'm going to make the thingy a child of the rotate as well. So here we go. Now let's see if that works. All right. That's exactly what I need. Cool. All right, so the next part is cloning this. Before that, I will save. So this is my fence scene with a typo in it. Here we go. And yeah, next thing is making all of this one object or add it to one group. And this is my side 1. And then I'm going to grab an instance of that, like so. And this is my side 2. And the only thing I have to do here is rotate it by 180 degrees. Press play. And there we go. That's one of the elements. And now I just need to clone that in a row, and I can do that in multiple ways. I will use 2 cloners for that. So I'm going to select both sides and create a cloner. I again hold down Alt. This will create a cloner for each of the separate selected elements. And now I'm going to set it up to, let's say, linear, and it should go this way, X direction, not Y. And we want to set this to render instance so that it's faster in the viewport, and we need a count of 10. Right, now we have this. Doesn't look totally right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the cloner here to clone it in -X direction, and there we go. Ta-da! Great. So the next part is to group that stuff. This is my fence. I'm going to try to keep my project as clean as possible here. And I'm going to move this object over by, let's say, 450. I think that's the middle. Exactly. So here we go. And the next thing I want to create is the roller in the background. So now we have this. It's already finished. That's the whole setup. 15 minutes to create this pattern. All right, let me, because it's based on the tracer, we always have to wait until the animation is finished here. Let me go to frame 600, so we have a full cycle down here. And let's jump back here to see the roller. And the thing about the roller is that these guys here, they are not just cloned, but they are coming out here. As the roller is rolling, they are coming out here to pick up the fence. So this is also something that we want to have in here. So with many setups, it's clever to create it in a two-dimensional way and then add the third dimension later. That makes many tasks a lot easier. And I'm going to do that here as well. So I'm going to create it in 2 dimensions and then add the rollerness. Right, so I'm going to create a cylinder next. Set it to Z+ in orientation, a radius to 15, height to something like 80, and I'm also going to create some sort of fillet here, like so. That's good. And now I'm going to clone it. Using the cloner, again, I hold down Alt while I create the cloner. This way it will be created as a parent. And I'm going to set the mode to honeycomb. Because honeycomb is creating this clone pattern, which is ideal for honeycombs, therefore hexagons, therefore for this shape, because we've got hexagons here. And I'm going to set it to, let's say, 9 by 9, because then the guy in the middle here is really in the middle. And I'm going to place it here, so that I'm at the pickup point. And then I'm going to adjust the width and height so that the others are fitting as well, like so. All right. And the next thing I can do is I'm going to bring up the values here. Let's say 17 seemed to be a good value in my tests, and 21 in height. And there we go. Now we have this already. And yeah, it's fitting. So the next thing I'm going to do is I want a ring around these. So I'm going to create a tube as the child of the cylinder, so it's in the same position. I'm going to set it to Z direction. The outer radius was, what was the radius of the cylinder? I think it was 15. And then we're going to use 25 here. Rotation segments, that's okay for now. Height is supposed to be something low. Let's go with 6. And yeah, outer radius, 25. Here we go. So that's the next step. We can also add a fillet here. Let's set it to a small value. And yeah, I think that works. All right. We just have to exchange the two, because in the end what we want to move is this thing, right? So this, let's say this is the maximum, and then we want another state that is the minimum, where it's completely inside of this other ring or tube. So I create a copy, and in that copy I'm going to move it back, right? So right now, because the cloner is iterating through its direct children by default, you can see that we have one clone where this thing is coming out and one clone where it's inside. But we can use MoGraph effectors to blend between the two states. And then we can control this by using fields, for example. And this is exactly what I'm going to do. The first thing you need to do to make that work is to set the clones from iterate to blend. So now you can see that it's blending from the first state, like the inside state, to the outside state. And when I create a plane effector, I can control that. All you have to set up here in the parameters is we don't need to affect position at all. The only thing we need to affect here is a parameter that is called modify clone, down here, this one. I'm going to zoom in. Modify clone. Right, set this to 100%, and you can see them moving. Right, now they are all at 100%. So how can I really control which ones are coming out and which ones are inside by using fields. I'm just going to create a linear field, and now you can already see, okay, from the left to the right, it's also colorizing by default. You can see it's inside, it's outside. Let's set this up to be in Y direction, and let's make it a little bit smaller. And now I can move the field up and down and adjust these. So I'm going to place this here, somewhere here. That is about reasonable. And then I'm also going to get rid of the color because I don't need the color information here. Okay, that's good. The next thing we need is the background, and this is just going to be a simple plane, also oriented to Z. And also I'm going to make it bigger and move it up a little bit, like so. Right. The important thing about this plane is the subdivision. So I just used the shortcut NB to bring up the grow shading with lines. And I don't need any width segments, but I need a lot of height segments because I need this subdivision for the deformer that I'm going to use in a second. Right. And that's exactly what I'm going to do next. So let me first bring them to the right position. So the plane needs to go a little bit back. And then all of the other objects as well need to go back too, so that we have a little gap between these here. You can probably see that better from the side. Here we go. Yep, that is correct. I'm going to take that. Good. Before I bend these objects, I actually want to make sure that they are synced in animation, so that the speed of the fence going up is the same as the speed of this soon-to-be roller. And the way I'm going to do that is by maybe first grouping everything here. So this is going to be my roller. And then I need to parent the cloner and the plane to the tracer, because the tracer is the object that we are moving up, and the tracer is also the object that is defining the speed. Okay, so let's find the tracer. The tracer is here. And there are two ways of making an object like a parent of another object. One is by just modifying the hierarchy. That's not really the way that works here in this scenario. The other way is by using an expression, and the expression is a constraint tag. So when I select these two objects here, these are the two that I want to parent to the tracer. Then I right-click, I go to rigging tags, and in here you find a constraint tag. And the constraint tag can be used for various things. You find them a lot when you have a look at the character rigs that we have inside of Cinema 4D. Parent constraints, or constraints in general, are very important. You can just copy the transform over from one object to the other. You can do aiming constraints, springs, mirrors, all kinds of stuff, and also parents. So by ticking parent, we can create a parent-child connection, although we don't have these objects organized as parents and children in the object manager, which is quite clever, because we can do stuff that wasn't possible the other way. All right, and now we just drag and drop the tracer in here. And now when we press play, maybe let me extend the timeline first, because then it will just go further. You can see that they are moving in sync. Okay, next is the bend. We need to bend this. And I'm gonna use the bend on the fence first. So let me create a bend. Let's make it a child of the fence. Let's make it so that it's starting somewhere here. This is where we want the bend to start. And we also have to adjust the sizes. So let me go a little bit lower here in Z size, and let's go a little bit up in Y size so that it's long. I don't know. Can you see that? Yeah, I think it's visible, right? So the yellow lines, this is the deformer. And because it's already a child of the fence null, it will deform this whole hierarchy, the fence, object, and everything that is a child. Okay, so let's do this. And before I do that, I'm going to copy over the bend also to the roller. I need the bend in both objects here. I'm going to set up some strength, and you can see, all right, it's somehow working here, but it's the wrong direction, so we go 90 degrees. We also keep the length, and now we can set this up to be round, like so. That's maybe a little bit too much. And the other cool thing is that we can still define where this starts and ends, so it's still procedural. And here's the part that is explaining why I use two bend deformers. Obviously, because this object here needs to be a roller. So it's not enough to just start the bend deformer here, but the bend needs to be unlimited for the roller. So I'm going to set it from limited to unlimited. And this way, I get the roller here. It's rolling further. It's bending more outside of the influence area here. But also, the fence here is rotating, and I have a setup that works like that. That's why I used two deformers here. All right, I think this is okay. That works for me. And now we can start creating that ground thing. Maybe we have to bring down the linear field a bit here, because at this point it needs to pick up the fence, right? So I think now it's good. All right, the next part is creating these objects that are down here, and I'm not going to be exactly precise. I'm just going to create something that looks like close to what we see here. So let me create a cube, and the cube is supposed to be 100 by 50 by, let's say, 10, or 100 by 10 by 50, like so. And let's move it here so we can work on it better. I'm going to make it editable, and then I'm going to create these 45-degree angles first by using the bevel tool, like so. So here I have the 45-degree things, and now I'm going to use a bool to bool out this radius here. That might make sense to do that first. Yes, it does. So let's create a cylinder. And this cylinder is supposed to be 50 in radius. That's good. And I'm going to place the cube, or what's left of the cube, somewhere here. I'm going to bring up the segments of the cylinder, and then I'm going to create a bool. The bool can be found here in the generators, and what you can do with the bool is you can subtract one object of the other. You can also union two objects. By default, it's set to A subtract B, so the cylinder is going to be subtracted from the cube. And I'm going to tick create single object, then also copy out the cube here, because we're going to need the cube without this cylindrical cut, and then I'm going to make it editable. Right. Here we go. Now we have the cube and the cube minus cylinder. All right. Next step is moving this cylinder down a little bit. I think -5 is the correct value. And I'm also going to clone the other cube, like so, in a linear way and in Z direction. minus Z direction. Here we go. I'm going to move this down by 5 centimeters as well, and I'm also going to place it here. So whenever you move something or rotate something, you can hold down the Shift key, and then it will snap or it will be quantized. So in this case, 5 centimeter steps quantization for the movement. Right, and now that we have this one, we could actually bevel this shape again. Let me do this. So I'm gonna bevel this shape here by using the bevel tool, and I'm going to go to edge mode, and I'm going to use the Phong break selection again, and this time in edge mode, the thing that has been activated is the select all button. So we can just select all of these edges and now bevel them. So let's do this like so. Let's add a few more subdivisions, and we can also Phong break the rounding here. And then we're going to do the very same thing with this guy here. In this case, we can just use all the edges, bevel it again like so. That sounds about, or looks about good. And I think we need a few more. Here we go. And now we're going to clone this onto the other side, or not on the other side, but along this axis. And to do that, I'm going to create a null so that it can be inside of here. And I'm going to clone the null. So let's clone it. And also, again, in a linear way, we're going to clone it in X direction with a distance of 100 centimeters. And we're going to need more of these. We're going to use render instances. Let's say we go with 20. And now we just need to move this object to the side that is that these things are going to. All right. I just found out which side that is. So we're going to start like here, or we are already in for a few frames. So I'm going to do this. And now this is a mistake I just made. I shouldn't have done that, but we are going to the right here in the front, right? So here we go. So I'm going to set a keyframe here on the coordinates, and then I go to frame 40, like so, frame 40. Here's frame 40, set another keyframe, and then I go to frame 60 because that was the keyframe distance I was using before. And I'm just gonna use minus 900 now. And this should do the trick. Right. Let's have a look. And here we go. So it wasn't 100% in sync, and this is because we didn't have linear interpolation yet. So why do we have the cloner? Up here. There we go. It's the position, X position, and this one needs to be linear. And now it should work. Other than that, I'm going to select the track and just offset repeat again. And now it should loop until infinity. Okay, I'm happy with that. Now the next thing is I'm going to create a copy. And in the copy, I'm going to throw out this guy. We just need the cylinder here, or the cube minus cylinder. And let me find a good way to do that. I'm just going to create a new null because we need that rotation point here. And then I'm going to make this a child and rotate it. Here we go, 180 degrees. That's already fine. And then, instead of going this way, to the right, we have to go to the left with this one. And then, I think we have it. So, this is then minus 1,000. And now let's see if I did everything right. I didn't. Okay, so let's go back to 900. I think now it should work. Still not. Why is that? Let me double check. So we need this one. And the reason why it didn't work, here we go, 900, 900. The reason why it doesn't work. Well, let me just do it by hand. All right, I got it. Let's undo a lot of times. I just messed up my own logic here. So, here we go. Did you notice what happened? I deleted the cloner on the wrong one. So, let's have a look if this is enough undos. Seems to be. And now I'm going to move this one over here. I think that's what I did wrong. Let's find out. Troubleshooting in a live session, that's always cool. Find out what other people on stage are doing wrong. And I'm going to add a null here as a child, like so. Let's see if that's the correct one. All right, and now, in theory, if I didn't do it wrong again, it should work. That looks about right. Yay, I made it. Okay, let's save this. And let's finish up the modeling by creating another plane that is just down here, and then we can jump into making this look beautiful. So, let me get rid of the timeline. We don't need that for now. I'm gonna create a plane, make it wider, make it not as deep here, and move it down by 20 centimeters. Here we go. And that's the modeling. Done. Modeling plus animation, done. We can hit play, so we then have something to render. Unfortunately, in this case, as I mentioned earlier, because it's based on a tracer, we have to play back the animation. I could also have exported it as an alembic. This way, we could scrub the timeline. Maybe that would have been cleverer, but I didn't do it. So here we are. All right. Good. I think that's enough here. And the next thing I'm going to do is I create a camera. Here we go. And I set the camera up to have a high focal length, like 80. And place it to something like this, maybe. I think that's good. Maybe like so. And we should also bring down the bends. The best way to find the bends now is by using the search here in the object manager. Just type in bend and you can just select both of them. And let's move this down a little bit and let's increase the strength here so that we can see a little bit of the movement or of the bend up here. That's still too far up. Let's go here and increase this. All right. So let's say this works. And 5 minutes to shade this whole thing. That's not bad. It's possible. All right, we're gonna set this up to Redshift as the renderer. And I'm also going to create a dome light, because I usually like starting with a dome light. And now when I hit the viewport IPR, or when I start it, we get this, which is like an ambient occlusion rendering of the whole thing. And the next thing I want to do is I want to search for an HDR image. And HDR images are images with like more depth to the color, so you can have values that are brighter than white, which is perfect when you have a sun inside of an image, for example, because you can use it for lighting. So I'm going to use this one here in my dome light, and then I'm going to rotate the dome light to something like this, so that the light is coming a little bit from the side. All right, that looks much better than before. And the next thing I'm going to do is create some very simple materials. So let's do that. I'm going to create Redshift materials standard. I'm going to use the Redshift standard material. The first one is going to be my gold material. And the easiest way to create a gold material is by setting the color to something that is like a desaturated yellow orangish color, and bring up the metalness to 1. And then we need to find the two sweep objects, sweep, and just make these make this material or assign this material. All right, the next one is going to be an iron material, iron. And in this case, we are just fiddling with the color here. We're going to desaturate it completely, make it a bit darker, and now we have to assign it to, well, actually, we didn't clean up the project yet here. So let's use this floor object to clean up my setup. Here we go. So this is my floor, and the iron can go onto the floor. That's good. It can also go onto the thingy. So here we go. It's now on the thingy. And I'm going to select the thingy and just bring it up here in the object manager by hitting the S key for scroll to selection. And I'm going to create a new object. That's my aluminum, or it just needs to be a little bit brighter than the other one, like so. And I'm going to assign it to here we go. I'm going to assign it to, that's not what I want. Here we go. Here's the thingy. Here's the tube. I'm going to assign it to the tube. So now this part is a little bit brighter. And now the other thing that I need is this ring here. So let's do that. We're going to go to the roller. And in the roller, there are these two tubes. These are supposed to be iron, like so. But the middle part here is not supposed to be iron. So we are going to create a plastic material from the asset browser. Plastic. Maybe let me search for it here in the materials, Redshift, plastic, and use the plastic rough. And just assign it to these cylinders. We're getting there. We're getting there. Okay. Let's create one last material. This is also going to be the most complicated material, so I'm pretty sure I will finish in time. So the last material that I want to create is a mix material. So I'm going to create a material that I use to mix two other materials. So I'm going to call it mix. And in this case, I'm going to switch to my nodes layout so that I can set this up a little bit. And this one is going to be a little bit more technical. But in case you're interested in the connection between creating a texture and math, this is your thing now. So I'm not going to use the Redshift standard here. I'm going to use a material blender, because this allows me to blend two materials. I can blend the iron with the plastic, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. So, but in order to do that, I need to reference the two materials. And I'm going to do that by bringing up the reference shader. So here we go. That's the reference shader. And we need that 2 times. And the first one is going to be my plastic material. So I just drag and drop that into the material slot here. And then I'm going to select the other one and drag and drop my iron in here. And now I just need to link them up here in the material blender. So just drag a wire and use this as the base color, and drag a wire and use this as material color for layer 1. Now let's assign this mixed material to the plane. Here we go. And the cool thing now is that we can use the blend color here in the material blender to blend between the two. So whenever it's black, it's the plastic material. Whenever it's white, it's the iron material. Whenever it's something gray, it's something in between. And the cool thing is that the blend color can also be controlled by nodes. So the first thing I'm going to add here is a texture. I want to also have this sine waves thingy in here. And I tried finding a sine wave here in the asset browser as some media, but there is none. I tried to find a wave, but there is none. But I found some stripes, these ones. So I'm going to use them. The problem now is I've got stripes, but I actually want waves. So I have to create the waves myself. And this is how you're going to do this. First of all, I'm going to add this texture here as the material blend color. And now you can see that the stripes are showing up. Here in the material tag, I'm going to set the tiles V to 20. And now I have lines of plastic and iron. And here's the mathematical part that I mentioned earlier. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to affect the, let me jump in here. In the texture tag, there is an offset parameter, right? And if I choose the offset Y, or in this case V, you can see that when I bring this up by 0.1, you can see that I can move these stripes along the roller. And this is something I can use. So let me, what was the shortcut? Control click this one to bring up the offset parameter here. And the first thing I'm going to add is a vector maker. So a vector is basically more than one values. For colors, for example, you need 3 values: red, green, and blue. That's a vector because it's coming out as color then, but it's a vector. Positions, position X, position Y, position Z, that's a vector when it's in one parameter. So I'm going to connect this, and now I can play with the Y value here to move the texture around. 6 minutes left. I'm on it. Right, so I want to create this based on a gradient. So let me create a gradient, or in this case, ramp node. That's the name in Redshift. And I want to pipe that ramp. First of all, I'm going to set this to horizontal. I'm going to pipe that ramp into the input Y. And now you can already see, all right, we have something going on here. It's not straight anymore. There's a little bit of a wave in here. Actually, I don't need the wave right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the interpolation of all knots to linear. Now it's like tilted lines. And the next thing I can do is I can multiply that value with whatever number I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a mul node. And by using the mul node, first of all, let me set this to 1, so we multiply with 1. Let me pipe this up here, or wire this up. And the thing is, now when I increase input 2, you can see that the values here, or that the tilting is stronger. Right? So let me see what happened when I connect this to my... Oh, that doesn't work. Okay, good. Then I have no way to show you how this works. Okay, what we just did is we created a gradient that goes from 0% to 100%. Now we multiplied it, so it goes from 0% to 2000%. So what we created here is a color that is 20 times white. What we need to remap this into sine waves is not a value that goes from 0 to 200%, but we need 20 times a value from 0 to 100, right? So let me just show you. When we do that, this is this can be done by using the Modulo node. The Modulo, when you have a division calculation, it's giving you the remainder. So when I go up from 0 to 20, and I have this divisor set to 1, it's going up to 0 to 100%, 0 to 100%, and this 20 times. And now the next thing, and also the last thing, is that I just have to remap this into something that works. Maybe let me, I think I can show you when I pipe this here. Yeah, that works, that works. So first of all, we had the gradient, right? The gradient is starting here, that's 0, that's 1. Then I multiplied it. The gradient is now just here, and everything that you see that's white here is actually white going until 20 times white. And because of the modulo, I created a lot of gradients here. And I'm going to remap these gradients now. Ramp. I'm going to put this here. And I'm going to set the ramp to something that has white in the middle and black at the end again. So this should be black. So can you see what I did? I just created a gradient that is like constantly going from black to white. And when I pipe this into the vector maker now, here we go, and connect this one up again, we have our sine waves. And now we can control the amplitude of the sine wave by playing with the color of this middle dot, or not here. Let's quickly wait until it reloaded. Can we refresh? Come on, do it. Maybe we should also add something here. So this, in the multiply, this would be the count of waves. Let me see, why is it not doing anything anymore? Let me pipe this into the surface. Oh, here we go. It just needed a little bit of time. So we go up, set this to 30. So now we have our sine waves. It's 1 minute before I have to stop. Let me go to this. This is what I created within 1 hour. This was the reference. I think I'm pretty close. Whew.